All right, I'm here with Tim Hallberg, former sergeant in the 22nd Hooligans Company, and thank you for your time. The floor is yours.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Southern Ohio, a little farm. Um, I joined the Army because, I just wanted to be part of the war. Um, Originally, I played sports and all that stuff. I have a bunch of siblings, and originally it was out of a small town, and joined the war effort. Um, I went to the recruiters. I watched the videos like everybody else. Shopped around. We came down originally, it was Navy. I did everything, MEPS and everything for the Navy. I wanted to be the special warfare combat crewman, little boats up the rivers. Due to contract issues, I actually shipped, and then they had to like let me go basically. So I joined the Army 28 days later. Was because I got my apartment, my car, everything. So um, I joined the Army, and I was like, that didn't work out, so let's just do the reserves and go to college. So I did. I joined as a combat engineer. I went to basic in 2005, Fort Leonard Wood, like the rest of us, and I they got done with that. I joined the reserves. Um, I was working a lot. Katrina had just hit, and I was kind of doing that type of work, cleanup crews, masonry. College just kind of not my thing. So I went active duty after like 6 months in the reserves. After that, I went to Alaska. I had three choices. I'll never forget it. Going back to active duty from reserves, I had Fort Hood, Korea, or Alaska, and I was like, well, I heard bad things about Hood, and I don't want to go to Korea, so Alaska it is. I fell in love with it. I've actually spent about half my career there up till now. I'm still in the Army, active duty. I instruct right now at Fort Leonard Wood. I instruct EOCA, where we met, basically. EOCA. It's a great course. Feel like I'm giving back. I'm about to retire. I got a little over a year left. To just waiting on my time now. So here in beautiful Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, is where I live. Um, After I got to Alaska, I was in a striker brigade in Fort Wainwright. Um, did a lot of stuff. That's where I first met Blevins. He was up there too. I think that was all from that unit. Well, Paleo was part of that unit. They returned from the deployment. I was a private on Reader D. Paleo went to Hood. I think that was the only people from Alaska that came down. No, Salemi. Salemi did. Old Boone Salemi was part of the 42nd or the 22nd. Sorry, I was in the 42nd Clearance Company as well later on. But that was my first deployment to Iraq. I saw some stuff, but it wasn't crazy. IEDs. I got hit. I think it was 3 times. Blown out of the top of a striker. That was before there was like restraint harnesses and all that stuff. So that was exciting. Got to shoot a little bit, got shot at a few times. Nothing crazy. The Iraqis didn't really want to fight. They just kind of wanted to hit you and run away. Came back from that deployment, immediately PCS down to Fort Lewis at the time before it turned to JBLM. Got down there, and I remember in processing was a little weird. It was winter. I in process got to the unit, and yeah, I mean that's where the story begins. The 22nd. It had just stood up maybe 2 or 3 months beforehand. It was just a hot mess. I remember the first sergeant pulling us in, and the platoon sergeants like arguing over who gets who. There was me and another specialist that just got up to deployment. I think his name was Boyer. Boy, I remember. Remember in processing, I think Sergeant Grimes came to the unit the same day I did. And that's where the story begins, the 22nd. After Fort Lewis, I've deployed 3 more times, 2 more to Afghanistan and then 1 to Iraq. Yeah. So
Just one side question. Did you deploy your first time? Did you deploy with Blevins?
yeah, he was in a different platoon from me, but he was a party animal, so he'd always show up and hang out at the barracks. It was a super tight knit, super tight knit company. We were the only engineer company in an infantry brigade at Fort Wainwright, so everybody knew everybody. You know, everyone's business was out there, and like we'd have big, shindigs at the barracks, and Blevins would always show. Everyone would show. It was, besides the platoon sergeants, really, it was a very tight knit group.
I bet. I've heard a lot of things in passing about it. So when you're at the 22nd, what do you remember about training up to deployment? And you had the advantage, you deployed before. Do you feel like the training was adequate for what you were about to encounter?
Um, I cheated a little bit, and I watched an interview, and then I watched the Gordius thing before this. So, um, it kind of sparked my memory a little bit. But when I showed up to the company, we didn't have any equipment. We just knew we were a clearance company. And I came from a sapper company. So it was like, what's a clearance company? You know what I mean? It was like, we're trying to figure it out. I had done route clearance, but my deployment before that was a good mix of like sapper work, dismount sapper stuff, and route clearance. So, a little bit experience with both. But Iraq route clearance was different. A lot of the same principles were there, but we walked a lot in Iraq through palm groves and did sweeps and stuff like that. So when I got to the 22nd, I remember like I said, it was a hot mess. I showed up. Story I'll never forget. I think it was right before the holidays is when I actually in processed, and so they're like, everyone's going to go on leave and stuff. I think I took a little leave, and right after leave, it had snowed, and it doesn't snow a lot up there. Um, and I just left Alaska, so I'm zinging down the highway trying to get to work to PT one day, and they didn't call me and tell me work had been called off, and I got pulled over by I think it was a state trooper, and he's like, "You can't be going this fast with these conditions." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's just a little snow." I just come from Alaska. And he's like, "Yeah, I see you're from Alaska." He said, just slow it down a little bit. I wasn't even speeding, but that was my introduction to Washington. And my squad leader at the time had forgot to tell me, hey, no one's coming in. And then like that was like my first week, like actually at the unit, because I leave and stuff. And then I kind of got to know I had I think it was 7 guys. I was a specialist, promotable, and I had 7 guys that were handed to me as a team leader, which is a lot. That's like a sapper squad. And one of the guys I won't say names, one of the guys had got in trouble, and we had to go see the brigade sergeant major. I don't remember his name, but he just hated some people. I forget his name, the brigade sergeant major. And we went up there, and they're like, you're gonna get your ass chewed. I'm like, I just met this dude that got in trouble over the last weekend, like 2 days ago. I'm gonna get my ass chewed. You're like, yeah, you're his team leader. Here's his counseling packet. You're gonna get yelled at, and I did. So that was great. Welcome to Nickel. So road to war. It was long. I think it felt long because for the first 6 months I was there, it was like small training events, nothing in the field. We didn't even have equipment. You probably remember. And we do hip pocket training mostly, team building stuff, like, and just no. I felt like we didn't have like a purpose, if you will. We had some clearance equipment over time. We got it, slowly and slowly we started building up our equipment, but we didn't have like a goal. I remember, I think it was late 2010, we did the Warrior Forge. We went out in the woods and played with lieutenants.
Yeah.
And I felt, we knew we were going to deploy. We didn't know where, but we kept getting told, hey, we're going to deploy. We're a clearance company. You're deploying. Like, it's happening. And I always felt like it was such a waste of time. Like, we could be doing so much more, yet we're just in the woods shooting blanks at lieutenants. So for an entire summer, I remember, including setting up the little bases and stuff. After that, I think Gordius came in right about the time we started Warrior Forge, somewhere around that time, and then we kind of got a path forward. That time we get a new commander as well. My, a platoon sergeant Simcoe came in right about that time. We had Altoff, and then Simcoe came in as our platoon sergeant. And then we kind of had a goal at that point. And then we found out about an NTC in a couple months. I think we went in January 2011. And then that was kind of the time it got serious. In my mind, it kind of all got serious. It was not serious. I was ready for it, but serious in the fact that we were actually trained to do our job sometime late 2010 after Warrior Forge was over. A lot of guys were going to schools at that time. I had soldiers all over the place going to different schools. We went in large groups to Leonardwood. I remember I think it was RTC2 Sapper I went to, and my soldiers basically went to, and the whole battalion went to R2C2 like operator and stuff like that. I want to say that was late 2010 that happened. I could be wrong. It may have been after NTC we did that stuff, early 2011. Training wise, up until NTC I remember it got serious for the most part because people started realizing, hey, what it's going to be like. And that was my last NTC rotation where there were like fobs. After that NTC rotation for me, I've been there 5 total times. There were, it's just now, and now I went 2 years ago. Oh, shit. 4 years ago now. Wow. But it's called Visco now. It's just you go out there and there's no fobs, there's nothing. You just sleep wherever. So I'm trying to think. During that time I had some relationship issues. So I was kind of a hot mess leading up to war, kind of had that relationship issues happening. It was really messing with me, I suppose. And let's see. I went to a couple schools. I went to BLC, and then I went straight from BLC down to EOCA with you. I think we went in like April. Was it April we went?
I don't remember the month.
I
But what's real quick,
work here.
BLC?
Oh, BLC. It used to be called PLDC, and then it was called WLC when you went and I went, and and now it's called BLC. So I'm mixing old terms with new terms. My bad.
No, that's fine. But just so anybody would know, that's a school you go to that would be like a prerequisite for becoming a sergeant.
Yeah. Warrior leader. It's a basic level leadership course for the Army to become a sergeant. Yeah. I did that. I did that. From there, we did some more local field problems, lots of training around there. I remember we were pretty focused on, nonstop, at least hip pocket training all day. I felt like I wish it would have been longer, if you will. And I wish we had more Afghanistan experience in the crew. I think in the platoon, for squad leaders, we had a shuffle of squad leaders through the years. But I remember someone had been there before. One of our squad leaders had been to where we went there in Assad before. I don't remember who it was. So that what's that?
Sorry, I remember that too. I can't remember who it is, but I remember somebody had been to that same place.
Yeah, he was one of the squad leaders in my platoon, and I remember he kind of helped us get in the mindset a little better because he's like, it's not Iraq. I remember hearing that from him, and that stuck with me. And I'm the type of person I like to get out of the truck and fight with people, not sit in the truck, but route clearance is what it is. So yeah, the training, the question is, I guess, were we prepared? No, you're never prepared, especially what we walked into. But I felt like we got our ass in gear in time to make a difference, with the soldiers. Yeah.
So what did you have to do as an individual, just outside of, the all the logistical stuff you had to do when you're wearing the uniform, what did you do to prepare yourself for this deployment? And again, it's you have the advantage because you've done it before. What did you do this time to get ready to actually deploy for a year?
Personally, obviously EOCA and learning about IEDs, how they work, how to find them, how to destroy them, and having that capability, which is for EOCA, for the people that don't remember, is an explosive ordnance clearance agent. That tool in my pocket, I remember when we got back, we built a bunch of little IEDs. We put them around the cough there and we'd like move them and hide them, and people would find them, and it was like a game basically. And I remember doing that. Um, getting the guys ready, I don't remember like the specifics though. Like I said, one of the few things I remember is that hiding IEDs around the cough. Well, just like pressure plates and little makeshift things, and people would find them to kind of get their brains into that game. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I don't remember a lot of that, but I'm more curious, like, in your personal life, how do you get, did, did you have someone to help you with finances? Was that a factor? Did you, I mean, what do you do to prepare to that? What do you tell your family? How do you mentally prepare yourself walking into that? What do you do in that circumstance?
I mean, this deployment, the rest of the deployments, I had better plans and had people. I mean, I made my mom. I put her on my bank account so she could help me if I had issues. But I was a mess going into this through relationship issues, so I'm not gonna lie, I kind of just wung it. And that side of preparedness, um, I wasn't in a real good place, so I kind of just did whatever.
Okay. What do you remember about the day you deployed and the journey going to Afghanistan and first impressions when you arrived?
Not my first trip to the Middle East, my first time in Kyrgyzstan, and then down to I think we flew into Kandahar that time. It was obviously I knew the heat. The elevation was a little bit of a shock. Granted, we weren't at the highest elevation down there in Kandahar. My other deployments, I was up in the mountains, so there's a lot more elevation. Um, I remember I think it was we were getting on the bus to leave, and the random staff sergeant was floating around. He was the older guy, and it was Sergeant Popolitis, and he was a late deployer because I think he just got off a deployment or just something just happened. He just got to Fort Lewis or something like that. And I remember he came right up to me and talked shit about, hey little fella, because he was shorter, but he was really buff. And at that time, that's all I did was lift weights. And he's like, hey little fella, I bet you I can beat you in a weightlifting or something like that. I bet you bench press is higher than yours. So we talked a lot of shit throughout that deployment. That was just who he was. Um, I do remember that. Um, through Manas, I remember one of the days we were at Manas for a couple of days waiting because the whole battalion poured in at the same time. I remember playing volleyball um, at Manas and a couple baggage details, but I don't really remember much. Showing up to Afghanistan, we kind of rolled in. You and I stayed there for that BIP course in country BIP. Obviously the smells and the poo pond, that and Bagram's poo ponds were great. Um, uh, Talking to some people, locals trying to get the feel of things, but um, I would get word from people about how Passab was. I think Simcoe was there and Paiute were out there, so we would talk back and forth through whatever messenger at the time. Because I think we were in Kandahar for another like 10 days, and we got out to the Passab, flew in, got to the tents, and I got right after it. We started going on missions right away.
So when you started the missions right away, were you doing right seat rides with the company that we were relieving? Did you get to experience any of that?
No, there were maybe three or four of them around when we got there, but they were gone. That I don't remember seeing or doing any missions with them at all.
Okay, and I don't want to take up your time, but I got a funny story I got to share with you. When we were at Kandahar, I remember I was making a video for my kid, and we're in the barracks and I'm going around and like having people say hi, and then you let out this big old fart in the middle of it, and we all had to evacuate. I remember telling you, no big deal. I'm making it for my kid, but I still have that video. I'll show it to you when we're done.
Sounds sounds about right. I was, like I said, I was pretty immature walking into that. Probably
Whatever.
still into this day. But
That's the military life.
yeah, yeah, it'd be like that.
Okay, so I mean, third platoon, you were in third platoon. And I
Sure.
believe you all were the first to receive any type of contact or anything. So what was,
Yep.
yeah, sure. What was that like? What happened that day?
Yeah. Well, it was I'd say my fault that day. But we kind of some of the bad habits had come over from the last unit. Now we it was on a short route. I think it was Michelle south or east or west. I don't remember one of the Michelles. There was several of them out there. A short route. I think it was like 400 meters long. And the TTP we had been handed down was in order to take the whole route clearance package down this road. When you could see the end of it, you could see the fob, you could see the blimp from where that end of that route. You could see that mosque that's sat right outside Wilson or Basab there. And to take the whole package there was pointless in our minds. And a lot of us had bad habits from Iraq. You know, we didn't. We were expecting pop shots, maybe an RPG or something, not what we got that day. And so we went down that route. The standard thing we do was, I think it was our second time down it. This is maybe a week into it. We take one Husky leading, clearing, one roller truck, and then one A&A truck. Um, oh, this is a story, and I'm starting to remember more. We get down to the end of the route to turn around. The A&A truck flips before us. The Husky flips, starts heading back. And my truck's rolling up. I think I remember who I had driving, but I know I had Romero on the gun. Shalhoun was in the back. Um, I don't remember who was driving that day, but we started to turn around and we got hit with an IED. I think we got hit in the back first. I got hit. We got hit twice the same one. It wasn't a massive one, maybe 50 pounds, but we got hit, but it just barely missed our truck. So probably command wire of some sort. Um, so I backed up. I told my crew to back up and no small arms fire. And I wanted to look at the hole just to see. And like the truck worked. That's the first thing I always do is, the truck's working. The AC's still on. I'm not, there's no tires they're missing. So great. Um, we backed up and I looked at the hole and I remember seeing like part of another jug. So I'm like, dude, go. And we got hit again. The front end got hit. We were trying to turn around because it was kind of the road itself was narrow. There was a field you could turn around in, but I remember I think it was like not great terrain, so you didn't want to take an RG off roading. But we got hit twice. The holes were right next to each other, so I think it was a secondary device to take out recovery assets. So once again, we got very lucky because if I would have got immobilized, my stupid Iraq mind would have been like, "Hey, let's get out. Let's get the recovery here," and we would have got nailed. So we got very lucky that day. Um, we beat feet out of there. Like I said, I think it was about 400 meters long that route. There's a little bridge at the top, and that's where the rest of the convoy was. But we got there. They called for EOD to do post blast analysis, and the EOD shows up with their QRF 10 minutes later, which is fast. EOD takes forever. And we rolled down there, and the EOD tech's like, "Hey, I'll just hop in your truck. You could take me down there." He left his um, what is it called, Jervs there. We went down to the end of the route where that hole was. We're looking at it. Him and I hopped out of the truck, and he's measuring it. Now normally you use like tape measures, and you'll use like a camera to take the four cardinal directions and kind of get an idea for it, looking for parts for whatever IED or something was there, components. And this dude didn't have a tape measure, so I remember he takes his knife out and is like doing this with his knife, like, "Oh, it's about this many knives long." I'm like, "I got a tape measure if you want." He's like, "Yeah, it's all right. It's all right." So we hopped out of the hole, and I told the truck to turn around, the gun facing out, get my truck turned around. And we're getting ready to head out of there. And I'm like, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to walk back. It's only 400 meters." And my stupid, once again, stupid Iraq brain, that's all I knew, was like, cool, we'll walk out of here. So we started walking, and we hadn't got, and I told my truck to kind of stay behind us. We hadn't got to the side of the truck, maybe 10, 15 feet, and a PG hit right in the PG. I don't know what it was. It could have been one of those underbarrel, like 37 mil Vogs or something like that. But it was a small explosion, maybe 10 feet from us. Um, and then all hell broke loose. I didn't get a great look at any fighting positions in particular. I did see some muzzle flashes, but there was at least 3 or 4 fighting positions open, hitting us. The truck got lit up. I had probably about 10, 15 shots in it. My roller truck. I remember the camera got the cable that goes on the camera got shot, or Romero had shot it. I don't need to be name dropping. My gunner had shot it up. Either or one of antennas got shot. So it may have been him shooting because the truck was driving, or the enemy. Either way, we got lit up. We ran that 400 meters. And of course, my genius brain had left my taps in the truck. So I had one mag that was in my weapon. So I was black on ammo by the time I got up to the rest of the combo. We sprinted our way out of there under fire. When I got up to the trucks, I remember I needed more ammo. I was like, step one, get more ammo. So I ran to my truck was all lit up and it was facing the wrong way. To get the ammo, I had to go to the back. So I ran to a different truck, and I remember the gunner of that truck, Manchester, was sitting there shooting and trying to get his crow to engage. It kept jamming or something. He was shooting and engaging, and I threw my empty magazine at his leg, smoked him right in the knee. I'm like, "Give me your ammo!" So he threw his taps to me, and I reloaded and got back on it. Um, then we were trying to find a lieutenant, and no one knew where the LT was, or his designated lieutenant herder. That's what I always called it. The person that keeps an eye on the lieutenant so they don't wander off. They had wandered off, and they were in the grape rows, basically between us and the enemy, and they were picking grapes with some ANA soldiers and eating them. And we had to get them out of there. We engaged for another 15 minutes or so. I remember the Mark 19 of the infantry guys that were EOD escort. When they opened up, it kind of ended. It was probably a good 15 minutes of firefight. And that was our introduction to Afghanistan.
How did that change things for you? Did that change your mentality? I mean, what would you conclude from that experience?
I wasn't in Kansas anymore. It was a different game we were playing. So, like I said, I'm very thankful that we got lucky and that we only got hit and we didn't get out of the truck, because that second IED was definitely there to hit um, the whoever came to recover that vehicle. So my truck did get hit twice, but it didn't hit a tire. It hit the back, tore a bunch of the cage off, and they weren't massive. So definitely just something to disable and one to get the dismount. So my rollers got hit actually right between my rollers and my cage. So it tore a bunch of RPG cage off, but that was about it. Brains hurt a little bit, but
So some tactical adjustments of probably not getting out of the vehicle as much.
Sure. Yeah. I remember linking up with the EOD guys a little bit after that and learned how to use the mine hounds better. And they had some like grape rows set up in their compound and some like a roof area you could practice. And we'd go over there and we train with them and kind of get their input, because they were all over. They had a lot of expertise on certain things. And I remember picking their brains hard after that.
Okay. Just curious, what's the next thing you remember in that deployment?
The APOBs, I don't, well, no, I guess the next thing was when the Buffalo got tore up. Blevins and all his crew got tore up, and that was my Buffalo. I remember I was getting it ready. It was like messed up, and it came out from the shop, and we got it ready. And their Buffalo, I think they had rolled it a couple days before that, and their crow was messed up. So they took my Buffalo on that mission. I remember I just got everything the way I wanted it. I was supposed to be in the Buffalo, and it came back. It got torn to shit. That Buffalo got those poor guys got destroyed on that mission. But I remember that. I remember going in there, help clean it out. It was a mess. Um, And I think that buffalo got sent out after that. I don't think it came back. I got another one after that.
Okay, we're gonna
Uh,
take our first break here, actually, if that's okay, and then we'll
yeah,
jump.
cool.
So you arrived somewhere around the 6th of August, and then your incident happened that you just described, and then already by the 14th of August, there's another one with the buffalo you had just described that had been annihilated with Blevins and rear and all that. Um, from memory, it sounds like you were on TBI protocol still at that point.
Maybe. I don't remember the days exactly. My cab paperwork for that deployment, I could look at that because that was the first incident that qualified me for that cab. I already had one from my previous deployment, but I can look at that date and I could tell you when exactly that incident happened. I have that
Okay.
somewhere in my stuff.
What is TBI protocol? Just so everybody would know what happens when you get blasted in this. You get actually let's go back to that point. You get blasted, you get back from that mission. What does that evaluation look like? What does that look like for them to screen someone for a TBI, and what happens after?
Mace test, see if affected at all. I mean, we were within rifle shot of that of Passab when this happened, but we got back there and my truck was still rolling somehow. Um, we got back to Passab. They do the mace, the apple bubble saddle, whatever bullshit. And then they say, "Oh, you're good." But if you had a qualifying incident, this deployment, it was qualifying incident. From what I remember, it was 24-hour cooldown from mission. It was like a blast within 50 feet, I think, or something like that. We took two of them to the truck. So because there's other days where the truck would get like I was the for this almost the entire deployment, I was the lead husky or the lead roller truck and lead dismount. I did both. And when the Huskies would get hit, it would qualify me to technically sit down sometimes.
So one of the things that happened that did change platoon level tactics and I think to some extent company what led to people being dismounted on in December with Grimes was a lot of vehicles were getting hit, and so they wanted to change the way they did tactics and get people on ground looking for wire. What do you remember about, I mean, there were two incidents right there where there was loss of vehicles. What do you remember about early deployment and in that activity and what it was like trying to get ready for the next mission?
I mean, it was an absolute rat race. Every platoon had their 4 or 5 gun trucks they take. And you had another 2, 3 backups. But I remember we got to the point, in 2011, the first months that platoons were borrowing 2 trucks from other platoons. They just didn't have the trucks. They had the people for the most part, but they didn't have the vehicles. And around clearance patrol without the vehicle. Then we were doing skeleton crews because one truck would get hit, that crew would have to sit. So we'd have, I think the minimum was like 21 personnel plus a medic in order to roll, and you had to have 2 Huskies, um, 4 gun trucks. I think it was 4 gun trucks and a Buffalo. So there was times where we had the absolute minimum. Some of the bigger missions later on, we'd take as many trucks as possible because it was inevitable someone was going to get hit. But that bare bones 20 people, and then running dismounts with that was near impossible. Um, I do remember shuffling vehicles a lot, borrowing vehicles from other platoons. They borrow them from us. I remember, you always had that little squabble, like you left trash in my truck, that kind of shit. It was all, that was all. You get a truck back, and it was, they didn't fill it up, and they didn't, but they're tired, and everyone, little empathy was good sometimes there. I'm not saying I had it because I was young and dumb. But those first couple months were a rat race. It was just madness. Yeah.
And this might be an impossible question asking like to go back so long ago, but after first month there, 2 incidents. Do you remember what you're thinking at that point in time? Are you ever worried about your own mortality?
No, I didn't. I didn't. No, not really. I didn't. I don't know. You put me in those situations, and I'm not really. I'm cautious by nature, but I'm not scared. Like I just like, yeah, if it's my day, it's my day. I'd always tell my guys because I did all the dismounts too. You pull a dismount from your truck. I always had one in the back working the gyro cam. I get a couple of guys from whatever other vehicles they had them for me. We generally dismount 4-man teams, sometimes five, depending on the area. Some of the areas were worse than others. We ran 249. Sometimes we wouldn't. But when we dismount, I remember I always look at my driver, and I had a slew of drivers because either I'd get hit or my driver or the Husky would get hit near me. And I remember that deployment, I probably had like 5 or 6 different drivers in the lead truck because some of them would just, it was rough. They'd move them back and they'd be happy because they weren't in the front about to get hit. I didn't get moved, unfortunately, but my dudes kept getting moved out. Gunners would switch around. Sometimes because we needed, that rank, if gunners would get promoted, we needed someone with more experience to move into a different vehicle, or it was just because the stress of being in the lead truck all the time got to them. It's the same way you shuffle the Husky drivers, or you should have. But we didn't have the NCOs, so I rolled. And Simcoe liked the way I don't mean to name drop again, breaking the rules, but he liked the way I led the patrol, and we were slow. I remember because I'm cautious, but thorough. I remember one mission. I don't remember where exactly it was, but I remember one mission where the Huskies were both down, panels out, GPRs out. So we were just driving. The lead vehicle was just doing route clearance with rollers. Recon by roller is what we did.
That's fun.
So recon by tire. I remember doing that. Just because everything was broken.
Mm. And I do want to ask, I ask everybody this, but did you ever hear of anybody coming after us on our routes and getting hit?
No, I remember one situation we were doing the what we called the box, the original box of death. We were running that mission, and there was a patrol that went in front of us where we were getting ready to clear. I guess they're impatient, and they kept setting up the strong points at all the corners and over culverts. They had strong points, which was basically one vehicle, a skeleton crew, and they'd sit out there and just wait to be attacked. The infantry guys. And I remember they left before we got there, and they got hit somewhere in front of us. Like in front of us, they got hit. I remember. I think we drove past the scene. I think all 3 or 4 of them passed. I remember seeing that.
So I don't want to go past December, but what do you remember next about that deployment?
It was madness. I remember they right before in the December timeframe they opened up. I think it was Kilowak, that area had just been an A&A area, but we started pushing down into there. I remember going down there. I remember Mac and Grimes getting hit. Remember going down there. I think it was the next day after they got hit. We went down there, dismount. We really did a lot of dismounts. Dismounting down through there. I remember we found an IED one day. I never forget this. I think it was Christmas Day. I'm almost positive. Everyone wants to get back and do Christmas stuff, but we found an IED. We found a pressure plate down Kilowak, and we spent maybe 2 hours looking for the rest of that IED. The Buffalo's pretty slow. It seemed like 2 hours. I don't know how long it really was, but we spent forever down in where you're going to get attacked in Kilowak, looking for the rest of that IED. We never found it. We never found a main charge, just the pressure plate. So I do remember that. I remember an instance before that because I remember we kept switching hands. I don't know if we were originally National Guard or maybe we were under it was 5th Engineers, or I don't remember who we were under. It was the Seahorse Patch. But I remember we had several dads throughout the deployment because our real dads, they were stepdads. Our real dad was in Leatherneck. But I remember one of our stepdads, the lieutenant colonel, came on a patrol with us, and we were out doing a command wire sweep. We found a command wire, found an IED, did the good work. We did a trace back to try to find a firing point on the command wire, and whatever pattern we did that day, because you want to follow the wire straight up, but you're gonna die. So we did our way back. We found the firing position, and this lieutenant colonel was on the ground with me. I want to say it was Niehaus, a couple other guys. He's like, give me a grenade. He wanted to frag the hole. It was a hole because of the way the holes worked out there in Toronto. It was on Toronto South. Because yes, Toronto, then Toronto South, I think it was. And we found the hole. There's some trash in there. He wanted to frag, and he's like, give me a frag. And I'm like, I don't have one. They took them away. They had taken them from us. They didn't trust us with hand grenades. And he's like, what do you mean they didn't trust you with hand grenades? And I'm like, we don't have hand grenades. He's like, then I remember it got fixed that night. They came with remember the supply sergeant. I don't remember who the supply sergeant was, but he came with a laundry bag of grenades to our tent, was handing them out. Because our platoon, once again, we were super methodical. Like we did our AARs like clockwork. If it was real late and we are going to make the defact, we'd sometimes hit it and do our AAR. But every single mission we AAR'd from the start of that deployment, and it was tedious, but I felt like it led us to be very methodical in our movements. We weren't the fastest, for sure, not the fastest platoon when it came to missions. We were the slowest by far. However, very methodical. So yeah, I'll never forget that story either. Like, I don't remember that colonel's name. It was something, O'Rourke or something.
I remember getting hand grenades. I don't know if that
It
was
was
that, but I remember getting my hand grenade.
it was because a lieutenant colonel asked me to frag a hole, and I was like, I don't have one, sir. And they took them away from us. I do remember. I think it was right around that time, um, because I had a squad leader then. My squad leader got removed, and I got bumped up. I was the alpha team leader in first squad, and then my squad leader got pulled somewhere around December to go to Kandahar. Can I say names?
Yeah.
It was Kukuro. He got pulled to go to Kandahar to be the LNO. Malolo had come. Malolo was there. Then Malolo had went, I think, into first platoon, and so I filled that squad leader role. But Kukuro was still there. So sometime I think probably November, we had a mission where we were at Toronto. There was an old Canadian fob right there when you turned off. I think Summit to Toronto. There's an old Canadian fob, and they wanted to clear it, and they sent us down there, and they gave us, because you knew there's going to be IEDs in it. They gave us these APOBs, and there was no APOBs class. It was just here's a rocket and two bags of explosives. You hook it together and you fire it. So we did some battle drills with on the fob without hooking it up to figure out how to use it. And the first one, I thought it said it had a 45-second delay, and it didn't. It had a 10-second delay. I have helmet cam footage somewhere of it. Pulled the pins, and I was walking back all slow. We were aiming at the entryway to this little old fob that was tore up, and the rocket fired as we're walking away. Cool guy like. And I remember you see the helmet cam. I gotta find it. Whereas I'm like, you see my head go, oh shit, and start running. We were. And that was the first APOB. I think we were the first ones to fire one. And after that, I came back and I'm like, hey guys, the fuse is a little. The main charge goes off in like 30 seconds, but the rocket fires in 10. So learned that lesson the hard way. We fired like 2 that day. We cleared that fob out. There was no. The second rocket or the first rocket, it actually hit an IED, and it hit the IED and went off, and then the main charge went off. So there was one at the entrance. So that was cool. APOBs were my favorite from that deployment.
So I want to just remind, I'm kind of prefacing this, like this is your interview and I want you to be comfortable on what you talk about, but I want to jump into the incident in December because you and Grimes were really close. And if you could, I guess, opens for the benefit of everyone, like what you know about that incident and how that impacted you.
Yeah, I mean, Grimes and I are in process unit together, so it was always when you see someone you in process with, you just had that thing, and I always liked Grimes. He's just a super laid back, but super hard person, like super tough. And when we were on a different patrol that day, we came back and we knew something had happened, but we weren't sure what. And First Sergeant met us at the where we did it right by the fuel point. We'd always pull our trucks over, we'd fuel up, pull our trucks over, and do our AAR. He met us there because he kind of knew our TTP, and he met us there, and he told us what had happened. And that was the first time and the only time I've ever went weak in the knees. I don't know why, but it hit me really hard. I think because we had gone there the day before, or we were getting ready to go there, and then it was Grimes, and Grimes went to past selection before that deployment. He was, and he chose to go on the deployment with us, and knowing that he got him, to me was just like, oh shit, I'm the dismount for my platoon, the lead, and not self-preservation. Like I kind of went to that deployment as an idiot. Like I didn't really care about myself much. It just hit me, and I got weak in the knees, and I leaned up against T-wall, and took me out for a minute or so.
Did I know these are sensitive questions, but like, did that have long-term impact on you? Is that, I mean, even in the deployment in the moment, did that change the way you thought about things, the way you did things, or is that something you carry with you today?
No, I mean, I've seen Grimes a few times since that. He's retiring right now. I saw him, Alan, and not Alan. Is it Alan? It was him, Alan, and I met up not that long ago. Maybe it was just me and Grimes met up. I don't remember. We all met up a while ago, but Grimes was there, and he's just the toughest. Like, dude's got half a face, and he passed sapper school after that. Did his time as a drill. Like, how much how scary a drill would be, with half a face, and just doesn't care. That's who he is. He didn't quit, and he doesn't. I don't think I carry it with me. I think I know. Actually, hold on. Yes, after that deployment, it did. I could not talk to him. I didn't know Max super well, but he was a guy in the platoon and bullshit with, or not the platoon, the company. Everyone knew each other for a little bit, and I couldn't talk to them after the deployment. I don't know why, and I apologized to him. I remember apologizing to him. Like, dude, I don't know why I couldn't talk to them. Maybe it's just seeing what could have been me. Um, but I just could not. I saw them and I said hi, and I did apologize to I think both of them. I couldn't talk to them. You know what I mean? It was weird.
I'm sure there's a reason for that, and whether or not we ever find that, but I'm sure that's a natural response. I think that happens to a
Sure.
lot. So, what would be awesome, and you'd be the first one I've talked to that would remember any great details, Shikari Perez in January. Do you remember anything about those missions? That's funny.
Sakari Perez, was that the one right off the highway?
So Shikari Perez, January, they sent the platoons out for several days, and they were building all these new strong points in the middle of nowhere to
Ah,
that area.
yes.
Okay, so start with, what do you know of what the mission was, what was happening? Like, tell me everything you can tell me about that.
All right. So if I remember correctly, they were cutting new routes in. They're making another box because they like to make these boxes. They put little fobs along the box, and that was kind of like how they're cutting out the land because they're trying to take that area. I don't remember the name of the one route that my platoon got messed up on, but you had Toronto, and it was giant. It wasn't that big of an area, but they were cutting it up into squares, and a different platoon had went there before us, and I think it was the day before. I think it was someone else that got hit and it burnt their truck to the ground in that same area. I don't remember if it was the next day after us or the day before, but we were clearing out. The infantry had taken over this little compound, and we had cleared our way in. We brought some reinforcements or something, and when we got in there, there was uh, an EOD truck parked. This is the Povolitis was with us. They were doing their rip, their left seat, right seat, and he was actually my gunner that day, so he was learning the routes. And we parked our trucks, and I never feel comfortable, and like I said, I'm reckless, but I'm also very cautious. And I'll do things, do crazy things, but cautious, where it's like, hey guys, we just got here. We're gonna do our sweeps, our 5s and 25s. So we got out and started doing our sweeps. My detector guy got out there. Detector Gallagher, I think it was Gallagher, and he hit a hard hit on a spot. And so we looked, swept the area a little bit, and sure enough, there was a cache right there in a barrel. We pulled a bunch of shit out of a hole. I know there's a couple machine guns, a grenade, some other stuff, but we
Wow.
found it was like 10 feet from an EOD truck. We were taking fire in and off and on the whole time. We stayed there for a little bit, then we headed back out. I remember that pretty good. It was like 10 feet from an EOD truck, and I work with EOD techs now, and I always talk shit to them about that.
Yeah, I love hearing about that because that was around the time that they changed some lieutenants and stuff, and there was like people come. It's like there's half the deploy. Gordius had left during the deployment too, and I think that was one of the last things he did. And so it's this interesting time of like some people have no awareness of what that was, and because he left before it, and it's just hard to find people that were there for that mission.
Yeah, no, we were probably like, I think probably 2/3 of our patrol was my platoon. The other third was the other, that fourth platoon was ripping in at that time. I remember that. Yeah, I had found caches in Iraq. We'd done a lot of cache sweeps, and that's when I knew, like, how to just do sweeps for that stuff. So, a little instinct there. And me and the homies found that fella. It was
Okay.
cool. I got some pictures. I don't know if I sent them to you or not.
Maybe I got a bunch of pictures from a lot of people, so I'd have to go back. So we're in. Go ahead. You're about to say something.
Yeah, no, I'll just kind of wrap up what I remember. I remember that we had a big mission. I don't remember, exactly when. Paiute's truck. No, not Paiute. That's when he shot those dudes. There's that one mission I wasn't on. I was on TBI cooldown. I got hit the day before that. I think I just got hit. I wasn't there for some reason. Normally, if I wasn't there, because I got hit. But the mission where the recoillesses had tore up Dow and all that stuff, and Niehouse's truck. I remember that. I wasn't there for that. Then I remember we did a couple missions. We don't have to Leatherneck a few times. I don't remember why. And then we did some. I think the Leatherneck missions. We would go to Ramrod, which is halfway between Passab and Leatherneck. We go out there and we did some missions with the special people. Remember that? And we got hit there. We had a dog in one of the trucks. We get mine dogs occasionally to just show up and, like, let's go on mission. We did that. The dog, I think it was Kugaro that got hit that day, I think. And I remember the dog puked all over the vehicle inside of that truck when I got hit. We got hit a few times out there, but they were small. Like the Hellman IEDs were like 50 pounders. 40, I think it's 40 is the UBE amount in a normal yellow jug, the 20-liter jug. But we got hit, but they weren't as nasty. The stuff out by us was nasty. They're just gnarly hits. 4 or 5 jugs per hole. I remember doing a big name dot mission in I think it's Toronto. That's another long one. It's the day that Darius got popped in the face. I remember that one. It was a named op. We were pushing down into there. There was an old cop at the end of that route. I think it was Route Toronto or Toronto South, they called it. There was a cop that used to have at the end of that. And then that turnaround point where I think it was Blevins' truck, not Blevins' truck. Allen's truck got smoked right there. And right past it, there was a cop. That's why they were trying to take that cop back. And we were pushing down there. And along that route, there was T-walls on the left. And to the right, there was a large open field. There was a few canals cut in, some tall grass. And the plan was we pushed the trucks down the main road. And in front of them, we used 2 teams. It was A&A infantry and us leading the way, 2 different dismount teams. And there's some good helmet cam footage of this one too out there. And I don't know who has it. My helmet cam during the first contact flipped up. And all you can see the whole firefight is the sky. We were pushing along. We actually were man packing APOBs in. And we were pushing along. We got about halfway down the route. I found, I think it was a command wire. And I remember I cut the command wires. I wasn't really supposed to. But I could see exactly where it was going into the road. got the command wire. I cut it. We took contact right away, and we were taking it from our 12 o'clock position, which was where we were heading. And we were taking it also from the 3. They had good intersecting, interlocking field of fire on us. I had one team in the open, and for us, we had a wadi to the right of us with the grass growing over, and there's a small wall in front of us, and we were getting lit up. I mean, they had a couple of PKMs, and they had a Dishka down there. That's what Doris got hit with. Was the 50 cal Dishka. PGs. We were going back and forth for a hot minute. The A&A guys, I think they just took off on us. So I remember they were helping us carry APOBs pieces, and I had to drag APOBs back. I think two packs. I had to drag. Man, those things ain't light. But we took contact for a little while. No good cover. We were in an open field. Cash. We pushed up a little bit. There was the wadi we pushed into. I remember clearing it by hand. Forget. I think it was trying to think who my Mindhound operator was at the time. He ended up getting hit later. I think he broke his back. But we cleared our way up to this wall to take cover. I mean, it was at that point I made a choice between I'm going to get shot. There was pretty accurate fire, or I'm going to clear up, try to do my best. We even sent the dog up, which we had with us. During that mission, we had a medic, and the medic was a National Guardsman that we were attached to because we got, like I said, we had a bunch of stepdads at the point that Russell was his name. He was on the other crew, and I remember after the first contact, I was shooting back. I lost a couple 2 or 3s. And I look over, and the dog handler was squirming, and it looked like he was doing the "I just got shot" squirm. And the medic Russell ran back because we had 2 different dismount teams. He ran back. I remember I was yelling like, "Hey, he looks like he got hit," the dog handler, and he ran back there and he went to go help the dog handler, and the dog bit the shit out of him. It wasn't me that got bit.
Oh, whoa.
The medic got bit, and that was Kiriyama's team. Because I had my dismount team, Kiriyama had the other team, and I could see it. And so Russell got bit real hard, broke his skin and shit. And the dog handler was fine. He hadn't got hit. He was just trying to get his weapon. He'd fallen. His weapon was slung because he's working with the dog. He was trying to get his weapon out. That's why he was doing it. I just got shot kicking chicken, We were out there. We had a good gunfight. I got to throw a frag grenade. That was cool. They were close. Some of them were close. They were moving in and out of the grass, right? 20, 30 yards from us. I remember the infantry guy threw one and I threw one. Because they're in the grass, we got like a couple of us got online, just dumped mags into the grass where they were at. And then we go to leave that area, and because of tracers and everything, I remember never forget that moment because we were laying there in this small defilade trying to not get hit, and the grass was just like I could see bullets hitting the grass above us, and that's why we pushed up to the wall because I knew, and I had 6 dudes out there I was in charge of, and I knew we were going to get shot. Someone's going to get hit. It's a miracle we didn't. I actually got shot later that night. I remember finding a bullet hole in my assault pack. This is wild, but on the way back, the field had caught on fire. It was pretty dry. I don't remember when this was, and the field caught on fire. And that's basically how we got out of there because all the fire. Simcoe took a picture with his gyro cam, and the whole field was on fire. And you can see like us moving out of there. That's how we got out because all the smoke and all that shit. So we pushed out of there. We get back into the vehicles. I remember I had to drag APOB's pieces back because the A&A guys just ran away. Simcoe thought I was dragging a person. I remember he was like trying to get me on the radio, and my ears were ringing because I had, it was a crazy fun firefight. And then we get back to the trucks. I get back up, and that day I wasn't in the lead truck. I was in the Buffalo. We were dismounting from the Buffalo, and I had a guy. I think it was his Graham. I think it was one of your guys. He had come along to help out, and I showed him where our Buffalo operator it was hollows. I showed him where the IED was because I could remember the wire had come in, and I had like pulled it up and shook it so I could see exactly where it hit. And I remember marking with T-wall. But I'm back in the Buffalo. It's up there, and this is super narrow. It's a canal, and then one of our trucks ended up rolling later into the canal into water. It was Romero's truck, so I had to do a water egress good times. But we got the IED stuck on the arm, and we're still getting shot at. Every time CAS would leave, close air support would leave, they'd start engaging us again. And we were getting low on ammo. I think it was a 240 or a 50 on the Buffalo was jammed up, just wasn't working right. The Crow systems just had, not great. And we're in the Buffalo shooting back. I was just taking everyone's mags from in there. We're engaging. We had to the south side, there was a grape hut, and that was like you're getting hit. We are getting hit from there. Started getting hit from down there. So I was engaging that. People were. I think it was Graham. I'm almost positive it was Graham. He was one. I think was he one of your guys, Graham?
Graham was first platoon, yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy helping me that day. He was shooting the other way, and we were just out of ammo. The back of the Buffalo was all ammo. We had a 249 in there somehow. We were just dumping that. Just all sides. Every time Cass would leave, and this is hours. I mean, I'm talking 3-4 hours. This is all taking place. We had an IED get stuck on the Buffalo arm, and we didn't want to drive away. It was one jug, and there's like I think there was about 5 or 6 jugs in this hole. We could see we had uncovered them, and we couldn't just drive away with it with a jug on our arm. He was trying to scrape it off from the wall. So I was like, Graham, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna pull this IED off, or this jug off the Buffalo. So I did. The reason it wouldn't come off is in the forks there was a rock stuck and it wouldn't let the jug come off. The Buffalo had speared it. So I got out there, popped the rock loose, and I think we pulled the jug off, set it down. Me and Graham got back in the truck. So, and then shortly after that, Doris got hit. They casevaced him back. Romero's truck rolled trying to help Doris, and they rolled into water. The medic, luckily, the truck Doris got hit in had Camacho and that medic Russell in the back. So, and he had been deployed before. He was a good medic. He popped his head down and patched up Doris, and then they moved him to Simcoe's truck, and then they casevaced him back. All while we were getting shot at up in the front. We didn't make it past that IED because we just couldn't get it cleared, and then we ended up leaving. We never even made it through that mission. They held us up. I think there were 5 or 6 jugs in that hole I could see. So it was one of those in the same spot that Allen and Rear had got hit too, right by it. So that happened. We left. Yeah.
Okay, the story.
I think one of the other platoons actually brought us ammo. I think because we were getting low on ammo. We had been there for like 3 hours just shooting it out. I think someone else brought us ammo because I remember getting like unloaded ammo and like having to load mag, like stuffing mags. I remember that happening.
So Doris kind of happened towards the tail
The rear.
end. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He was in the middle. We were in the front in the Buffalo, getting beat up pretty good. Luckily, the wall was in the way.
The end of the firefight is kind of when, I guess, after things had caught on fire, when the
Yeah, the things had caught on fire and burned. That's how we got back to the truck. But Doris had got hit when I got back to the truck. I remember hearing it. It may have happened right before that. I don't know. But I remember hearing he's leaving. He had been shot.
Okay. All right, so it's the same evening. We just took a break. Tim had to drive home from his daughter's soccer practice, so it's just going a couple hours later, and we're back on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Toronto mission. We talked about that. That one kind of wrapped up. Obviously, these aren't all in chronological order. It's kind of scattered. I don't remember the dates exactly, so that's your job to figure out those. But the next major mission that stands out, I think it was before the Toronto mission, was one that was recorded because we had Jeff Van Sant, that reporter, riding along with us.
Mhm.
We were on one of the routes in what we called the box, and it was a down and back route. And we passed a cop, and then we passed another cop at the end. We were rolling along, and the route was clear. I think we got some chatter about some funny business on the western side of the route on the way down the ISR or something. Saw some people moving around. We got down to the bottom, did a turn and burn. We turned around, started coming back up, and I'm riding along, and I was lead truck for most of this deployment. There was a PG chilling in the road, just on the side of the road, just a rocket just chilling there. It wasn't there on the way down. And I remember kind of slowed down, but I kept on trucking. And I called it up. I'm like, hey, it was Lieutenant Demona was the LT, and I said, hey, this is extra funky. Um, Spidey sense is going wild. We're going to keep moving. This is bull. And it hadn't been more than 50 meters later. We're rolling along, and we just get a barrage of gunfire from the 3 o'clock side of the route, would have been the east. It hit. I mean, I felt it pinging off my truck. I remember the video of the reporter Jeff in the truck. I think it was behind me. You can hear it pinging off his truck. We were getting sprayed from a couple spots. And I've almost never been more frustrated because my truck was down that day, and I had a replacement truck, and it had a crow on it. I hate the crows because they're just unreliable. They get these little tears in the wires, and sometimes they wouldn't work. You have to replace the wire, the solenoid. But the crow pivoted over when we started receiving gunfire, and I could see him shooting at me. I could see this dude. I think he had a PKM or something. And my crow gunner locks onto him, crosshair on his face, and goes to pull the trigger and click. And the feeling of frustration. He's charging it, click, click. The rest of the gunners were just lighting them up, suppressing them. And we called to the local cop and the location, and I think they could see us from there or see close to it. And then we marked it out, and then we told north and south, and that 810 came in. It was disgusting. I mean, you can see in the video, it doesn't do justice to the ground shaking beneath your feet when that thing was 150 yards off the road and just demolished those buildings. So there was probably one or two guys or three guys over there. I think personally that they had a recoilless rifle or at least some RPGs waiting to hit us. They want us to stop at that PG, but this was probably 6 months into deployment, and we weren't that stupid. Like, I'm not stopping for one little UXO on the side of the road, especially when it wasn't there before and now it's here. Yeah, 810 came in right after the 810 was coming. No, I think the 810 hadn't come in until we were further up, but I remember seeing and hearing and feeling it. My truck, I remember locking up. It hit one of the airlines because it chewed up like five of our trucks, the windows and everything. But it hit the airline in my RG, and we were losing air pressure. If you lose air pressure, those brakes lock up in those trucks. So we actually lost air pressure, and in the like ECP as we're trying to get into that little cop, and I think one of the other trucks behind me like pushed me because we were fighting our own brakes. We had rollers. I think the other truck behind me kind of tapped into me and pushed me through the gate to keep going. We got in there, we licked our wounds, pulled a slug from whatever it was, whatever machine gun lit us up from the side of my truck, and I remember giving it to the reporter. He was thrilled.
That's cool.
He loved that. Yeah, he loved that. Probably has as a necklace nowadays. But that was that incident. It was wild, but it just that compared to. And that was months down the road from when we got there. Earlier would stop like, oh, there's something on the side of the road, and we get tore up. Now we're like, we've been here for a while. We're like, no, not today, Johnny Taliban boy. We want to fight you, but I'm not stopping to fight you where you want to fight me at, where I'm an easy target. And that's by this point we're getting smarter at that shit. So, yeah, that was that incident.
Okay, I mean, I got some other notes here too. You'd mentioned a husky getting hit and being pushed in the
Oh,
middle of the road.
yeah. So there's this route, Corner Brook, and I remember Corner Brook was weird because it was a new route that had cut in, and it was right through the middle. It was like north of Toronto, because Toronto was by the Arghandab River. Um, Corner Brook was above it. So when we were Corner Brook had been cut in, they put a cop in the middle. I don't remember the name of that cop, but we would go there, and then Corner Brook connected with Chilliwack. So there was a intersection there, but you didn't come down Chilliwack because you're gonna get destroyed. So you came from Toronto or some, I think it was across. Been hit before. Um, but today we're pushing along. No one had been down here for a few days, and um, one of my huskies got hit. We remember there's a building on the left hand side. Oh, and either side of the route there was triple strand C wire that the other engineers had put in. The 10th Mountain guys had put in, and when we were rolling, one of my huskies got hit, and it actually picked it up and turned it sideways and locked the route off. It was the second husky because we staggered them, and the front husky was now trapped on the other side of this broke down husky with the whole front mod split off, and either side was C wire. So we had no way of getting to him. And he cleared his side, and I started clearing my side with rollers. That's our next option. Is I had rollers on my truck, push them into push down mode, start doing back and forths. Well, we had taken sporadic gunfire at this point, as per usual in that area, to the south side of the route. And I had CAS coming in. We had called for close air support, a couple Kiowas. And I remember they jumped on our net, and I was talking to them. They'd come to me. I could see where the gunfire was coming from, and I think I was going to mark it red smoke or certain smoke from the 203 was the standard there. I was going to mark it for him, and I was talking to him, or my gunner was going to mark it with my 203. I think that's what it was. I'm pretty sure it was Paiute on the gun. I think Romero was in the back, but I don't remember who was in the back. And then Chase was the driver. But I'm talking to this, and I could see this Kiowa. And next thing you know, we recon by tired and found the IED, the second IED that was there. Split the whole front mod off. My hood was, I remember seeing my hood like, 20, 30 meters away from me when I kind of came to. But the Kyle was literally talking to him when my mic went. I didn't even know I'd been hit, but my mic went silent. You know how you could tell in the headset when your radios go dead. And next thing you know, there's dust everywhere. The rest of the people in the convoy said the Kyle was coming, and it banked as my truck got blown up because it saw me get blown up and banked away from like the dust and the rocks. They said that was a pretty cool image. Um, yeah, it's like some war movie shit. That thing bent off to the side. I didn't see it. Obviously, I was in that mess. So we're sitting in the truck. I remember the driver, his neck was killing him. So we put a C collar on him. The gunner had got smacked in the mouth. I think it split his lip open, and I think he chipped his tooth. That was Paiute. And then whoever's in the back, I think he was fine. I think it was Romero. I don't remember who was in the back. He was okay. I was out of it a little bit, always was, brain, jello brain. But the next option now is we have a Husky still stuck, and we have my lieutenant's truck in Joku. He had came up and finished clearing around me with his rollers. The process starts there, of course. As soon as the air support leaves, the sporadic gunfire starts. Hours later, we got our guys out of there. I stayed around, and we were trying to load it up, and we started taking contact again. And I remember hopping into the back of the truck with Sergeant Kiriyama. And when those trucks don't have air, that rear door is a bitch, especially when it's sitting at the front mod on it and sitting all crooked. So we help each other in the truck, holding the door open. We get in the truck, and I get up on the gun to fire back. Once again, we're taking contact. I fire some rounds, and I run out of ammo. So I'm like, because the can had flown off. And I'm like, so okay, hand me another can. So he hands me up a can. Well, we had been doing PT in the motor pool, and we had emptied out ammo cans and put rocks in them for weights, and that's what the first can of ammo I got was actually full of rocks. After a couple bad words, I threw that can. He handed me another one. It was rocks again. Finally, the third can was ammo. Loaded it up and dumped half a belt into where they were shooting at us from. That continued. We in and out of the truck. I think we locked the rear door open. I think we were like they were moving the Husky first, and then they're getting that gun truck because the gun truck still had a gun, so it was still useful in the position. So let's get the Husky loaded, and then we'll have to hook up the. But as we were like walking around the area, moving around, I found another pressure plate, not 20, 30 meters behind. So we marked that, and that made recovery even harder because we had to like finagle the wrecker in there and drag it out. And I don't think we ever even took care of that IED. I think we marked it in a different platoon, got it a different day. Because at that point we got, two trucks down, probably getting low on ammo, low on people. You know, I think everyone else was Kazovac besides me in that truck. I think I sent them all back. Um, and another thing we had to do was get the APOBs because I had the APOB systems. I think I had a couple. We kept them a lot because they'd move that C wire into the route. There was other times where they'd move the C wire in front of the route and put an IED in there. I'd found several like that. So we'd keep the APOBs on us and fire that into that obstacle that we left out there for them to use. Because an obstacle without Overwatch is an enemy obstacle, and they love to do that. But we had to go walking out in the fields and get our APOBs back, and we actually fired them a couple days later, and they worked fine. So good stuff there. Um, that wasn't all day. I remember getting back at like super late that night. It was an all night event. I think it was your platoon that covered down. So I remember helping my guys back into a truck, and it was Fuller's truck. So I was on Cure Up that day. So another great mission. Another one sparked my memory while we were talking about that. It was, I believe, it was also Corner Brook, and we're something with about Corner Brook. The Huskies didn't get a good read. I think there was a lot of flat rocks because we were close to the river or something. That's kind of what we came to. But the Huskies always had a trouble on Corner Brook. I don't know why. Maybe we weren't calibrated for the specific terrain, but we were moving down Corner Brook. I think we were returning on a different day, and the Husky in front of me got hit. Now, sometimes your driver, especially if it's been a long day, starts getting a little too close. And if you're not, if I'm looking out my window, I might not be watching the Husky and him, and it's a lot going on in the lead truck. I'm trying to tell the Husky, like, hey, stay awake, stay in the middle of the road, And I'm also watching down here looking for bad guys. It gets intense. We got a little too close to this Husky, and it got hit, and it was a good one. Probably 150 pounder, decent sized IED. I remember it split the whole front mod off when he got hit, and that was one of the worst IEDs I've ever been hit by. Besides Iraq getting blown out of the striker, this one hurt. I think it was because the V-shaped hole couldn't work because we were next to that truck. But it got hit, and I think it was Powell that was in there, Powell, and he was unresponsive. So the other Husky cleared around him. No chem. We used to keep red and green chem lights. If you're, red if it's bad, green if it's good. When comms went out, this was always our standard. No chem light at all. So he was unconscious. So the other Husky clears around him, says he's in there. I think he said he was breathing. So we're like, okay, we're not going to rush. We don't want to get ourselves killed, get more people effed up. So we cleared around him. I rollered up to him. I didn't even get out of my truck. And I walked across the roller up around the door. I didn't hit the ground at all. But I remember opening up the hatches on the Husky, and the RPG armor, those bars, the bar armor on the sides, a piece of it, because when Huskies get hit, those doors open up sometimes, especially if it's a big one, had come in and slid into his vest. And he was unconscious still when I got there maybe 2-3 minutes later. And I thought, when I opened those doors up, that he was dead and that rod had impaled him, but it hadn't, because I remember I was reaching for the C collar to put it on his neck from above, and that rod, there was no blood or anything about it, and he was breathing, so I picked it up, and it was somehow in his vest. We have to get a hold of him to see if he remembers that, but it was like in his vest. I pulled it out, and it wasn't stuck into his body. I was like, oh my God, thank goodness we're good. I threw it off, and we got him in the back of my truck, and I don't remember the rest of that day, but open the top of a Husky, and you're like, this dude's dead. That's interesting. Another incident I just remembered was Chase, if you're ready. So I don't remember the mission itself, but I know Corner Brook connected with, I think it was Victoria, and Victoria was where um, the southern part of Victoria is where we get hit with recoilless and on all that side. I think that's where they connected. I could be wrong, but we were coming in the other way down Corner Brook, or trying to at least. And we found an IED. We were digging it up, and one of our guys had just been to the BIP country, the BIP course, and he had him in the Buffalo that day. And he actually picked up the IED, the jug, and moved it to his window to look at it, like 10 feet from outside the window. Yeah, picked up an arm, swung it around. It was outside his window, and then that truck got hit, or then the IED went off. I think it had an anti-handling device. judging by I think the pictures we had, one of those little like tilt ball things. But it went off right outside the street. It trashed the side of that buffalo. They all lived and they're okay. But I remember Chase was like puking all over himself because his face was like he was like looking out the window. It was a very interesting time.
It's not funny, but it's fucking funny.
He picked it up, he put it outside. You can't see, like that's what people don't know about route clearances. There's a lot of trust. You're not near the other vehicles, especially the Husky operators, and you know the controlling element, the platoon leaders, like by the buffalo. So there's 3 trucks in front of him that he can't see what they're doing. So you have to trust people. You have to trust the person that's doing something, and you couldn't see the buffalo operator picking the IED and putting it in the window. Yeah, it went off. It messed him up. I remember he was like vomiting all over the place after that, and head was all loopy. Yeah, just remember that one.
A lesson was learned that day.
Yeah, don't bring that IED to your window. IEDs are bad. Um, the other incident, the probably the last one I can think of clearly that sticks with me is on Victoria South. I don't remember what that area was called, but this is after the 82nd had ripped in. And they were really pushing hard south. I remember they had a big drive to go south, and we were, okay, it's bad down there, but and we were clearing down that route. I'm pretty sure we were clearing, and the way that route was towards the end, there's 2 lanes. There was like the grass median. It was almost like a 2-lane highway, and I'm pretty sure we were clearing one side, and we could see the cop, and we could see the balloon, and we're like another one of their like infantry guys just kind of went around us because they're tired of waiting, and they zoomed in front of us. They got to the base, and I'm pretty sure at that point we're like, they just drove here. Let's pack it up, go to the end, turn around, and come back. And we did that. I don't remember if we turned around first or we just kept driving, but the buffalo got hit on a culvert, and maybe that's why they went around us because we take forever to look at all the culverts. The buffalo got hit pretty hard. It broke one dude's back. I think it was Vest or Powell. I don't think it was Vest that broke his back. I remember Niehouse's helmet had like a big gouge in it or a dent in it because that fire suppression system was right here. It messed that buffalo. It picked it up and threw it. They're behind me, but I remember every story everyone telling. That thing went up in the air. I didn't see it. It was a good size one, beat buried. So we pushed down. Casevac'd into the local cop, got a medevaced out, recovery. That's the worst part is waiting for a wrecker, waiting for 916 to come in, load all that bullshit up. But that night, I guess this would have been May 30th. That night I got back, and a lot of the platoons would co-talk, like they did this here, and I know Damona was really good about making sure that platoons debriefed him, and he would brief, or he would pull that person in that experienced something if someone was going there, near the mission route. And 4th platoon, they went down that route the next day, and Sergeant P was their dismount guy, Sergeant Povolitis, and I remember him. We kind of sat alongside. I told him where we got hit, where the command wire would have came from. The fact that all those trucks rolled over it and they hit the buffalo on purpose. It's command wire, unless it was an offset remote device, but I'm assuming it's a command wire. It was, but and I told him where I would put in, where there's a safer spot to put in back here, and kind of skirt up here is kind of how I would dismount there. Because I don't know if that platoon had been there yet or they hadn't been there in a while. So we came up with a little plan of what I would do. Went about my day. The next day, that's when he dismounted that route and he got killed. Man, yeah, it's sad that the same spot they were gunning for us there. Yeah, sad stuff. Just a great guy. But a couple days later, pretty sure Damona pulled me aside, and he's like, "Hey, that cop had taken a picture of this. I don't remember if it was before I got hit or after we got hit before 4th platoon had went there. But here's a picture of the van that was stopped there doing maintenance on itself. at that culvert. So I took this picture, put it up on my shit list on the window, high value targets. And a couple days later, we found that one. And those little stupid vans they have, little minivans, they have stickers on them. And this one was very unique where the stickers were located. So easy to find. And we ran into it. So we caught up to him. I remember he was like going one way, and we flipped the bitch, came around, pulled him over, got him out. We had the little system that runs fingerprints and all that shit. And we did. We had him pulled over, searched his vehicle, all that stuff. And we ran him through, and because he didn't pop for fingerprints or retinal scan or anything, we couldn't do anything. They wouldn't let us take him back to base, detain him, and the local ANA or AMP or whoever it was wouldn't take him either. So we had to let him go that day. Was it the same guy? I don't know. But it was the same van for sure. I think the guy was the same. I remember showing him a picture and talking to the interpreter, and he was like, my vehicle was just broke down. So he kind of admitted to being that guy. But he could have been, maybe he didn't understand. Okay. So a couple of days goes by, and I remember talking to him when I got back. I was mad. I punched a few things. And hey, if you catch this guy again, he's been in the system, you have his fingerprints, maybe something has popped by now. So if you see him again, definitely pull him over. And I remember this because Lieutenant Njoku was on leave. I'm pretty sure it was Lieutenant Njoku. So his M9 was not taken with him. So, be a cool guy, just take the pistol with me. So I had the pistol that day. We found that dude and pulled him over. Same thing. I think we were passing, on the highway. I'm like, oh, that's that van. I recognize this dude now. So we pulled him over, got him out, searched his vehicle. We put him back in the bat and hide system. The linguist talking to him and whatnot. And same thing, he didn't pop for fingerprints, and they're like, there's nothing we can do. And I remember, I don't remember who was on the ground with me. I think it's normally just about 3 people, stuff like that, 3 or 4 people. But I remember I had that M9 in my hand, and I was just gonna shoot that dude. All evidence lined up to me, like, this is the dude. You need to just end this. Are you gonna get in trouble? Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of a blur. Obviously, I didn't do that. I don't know who talked me out of it. I wish I knew. But that was was rough. I had the pistol in my hand. It was probably on fire. Like, I was just gonna drain that dude and deal with the consequences later. I got talked out of it. But yeah, that's how I remember. The last bit of that deployment was just an absolute blur. I feel like there wasn't as much action right before we left. I feel it was kind of a calmer, maybe, or I just brain dumped the rest. I think everyone was just exhausted. I went on R&R very early in the deployment, so I think it was 9 months straight, 9.5 months straight. I did. I was exhausted, and I remember it was very surreal. We were laying in that like dirt floored massive tent in CAF, waiting for a ride out, and hearing about the unit behind us that just got I was the last person out of my platoon doing left seat, right seat rides. When I made it there, it was just like, this isn't real, this isn't real. And then the unit that replaced us, they had someone get killed. Well, we hadn't even left a calf yet. We were still waiting on a ride. And I remember the talk of, don't get comfortable. They're already getting their ass kicked. We might be going back, So until we landed in Washington, it was just, expecting to have to go back. So yeah, that was deployment number 2 for me. There's a lot more, I'm sure. What I remember is that.
Right, in the days to come, I'm sure a lot of other things will surface. Again, I want to be sensitive to what you're comfortable talking about. but one of the things I'm really trying to do is like let people get in your head during the deployment. And I don't think, you know, I can't think of a scenario that a civilian would be in that would be comparable to like what you were in that moment when you had pulled over that guy you were certain was involved in an IED. Like, are you comfortable trying to describe that moment, what is going through your head and what you're feeling?
I mean, obviously anger, um, revenge, yeah, that's all. I just wanted to just end it. And I remember saying like, I'm just gonna shoot this dude. I'm probably getting in trouble. And I'm just gonna shoot this dude. I'm gonna put this, end this. It's only right. Um, but I don't know how I got talked out of it. I really don't. I don't remember. I remember it was a blur. I remember getting back in the vehicle. Um, I don't know if Simcoe came out. I really don't know. Somebody, because we only dismounted about 3 or 4 people, so somebody talked me out of that shit. Um, but just I can't describe the emotions, but yeah, I don't know what I don't know. Not just the emotions. Obviously, the what I was feeling because of the situation, but what my question would be, what caused me to not do it? I don't know what someone said to me. I really don't.
Yeah, I think
Because
these are,
obviously that, not the right thing. And that would have been a war crime. You can't just shoot an unarmed person sitting on the side of Highway 1. That's not allowed. And I didn't. But I don't think I cared about that. Maybe I did. I don't remember.
I think it's interesting. The question to you is why didn't I do it? And I can think of many other ways to look at that, but nobody is ever prepared or like ready for that moment, right? It that's such a unique experience that it even um I deployed with you. I was there, and I couldn't even say what I would have done in that moment. You know what I mean? Like that's so I here's and this intersection of a possible moment for revenge, right? But you're also not
Yeah,
absolutely certain this was the guy that, and that's probably what saved the guy's life in the end was that just maybe that little room for doubt and somebody bending your ear. I don't know, but I imagine if this was it, well, I guess if we had the evidence he did it, maybe they would have allowed us to bring him into, and but it's just these are the things I want to highlight: that stressful experiences that people just really can't relate to, that we all had to endure in 1,000 different ways. People's
sure.
children
Yeah,
died of SIDS when we were over there, and what's that like? You're all the way across the world when this happens, like it, yeah.
yeah, it was wild, man. I don't know. Obviously, I know what would make me want to do it. I don't know what made me unwant to do it. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know what people said. I don't remember if people grabbed me. I don't remember. I wasn't little then. I'm not little now, but all I did was lift weights on that deployment and, go on missions. So I was not weak. So I'd imagine I got talked out of it. Um,
If it
I wish I
matters.
knew. I wish I knew who it was.
Okay, well, I will let you know. I will find that out. That's something I can find out, and I'll let you know if that's something important to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know what the other view on that was. So, you know, interesting stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to know too. We're about 8 minutes from the next break, but there was some other, certainly post deployment, there's some things I'd like to get into with you. But I'd like to see in the time we have left, if there was anything else during deployment that you felt you wanted to cover. Otherwise, we'll take a break and we'll jump into post deployment stuff.
Um, things have evolved since then, but the care we took of people after brain injuries,
Mhm.
it just wasn't adequate. I'm not trying to take a dig at anyone. Everyone was doing what they had to do, and we were all stubborn. I'm stubborn. I mean, I got hit the one on Corner Brook. I was just jello brain after that one. I remember, and I feel like I had to go to the board for staff sergeant promotion like a day or two later. Um, just absolute
It was.
jello brain. No, I did. I went to Leatherneck after that to go to the board because they made us fly all the way out there, leave everything we were doing to go to the board. And I feel like a couple days after I got hit by that one, I had to go to the board. And I remember just trying to study. That's all I was doing. I just couldn't remember things. You know, I didn't pass the board that time. Um, yeah, that's they're so rigid, and
Mhm.
can they recite a couple things in front of us, or are they the people doing the job? It was just it's crazy to me.
Well, if I appreciate those thoughts. If you want to pause here and
Yeah, sure.
okay, so we'll take a quick break, come back and talk post-deployment. Okay, in three. Okay, and we're back. This should be our final run, and I think we're gonna start post-deployment now.
Yeah,
Okay, take it away.
sweet. So we got back. Um, I was on orders, getting ready to go to. I had to go to Fort Knox, and by the end of the year, I think I left Thanksgiving Day, 2012, to go to Fort Knox. That was close to where I'm from. Trying to get back home. I was a young wife. I got married on R&R leave, or not R&R, but um, post deployment leave. I got married. Um, I had a young daughter. Um, you know, get the Knox. I had a new life. It kind of, I think there's a few issues when I was still at Lewis, but nothing crazy. I had, throat surgery. I had, did all the post deployment stuff, as far as like the TBI clinics, the, I think I had physical therapy. My back was jacked up then. Just all the appointments, reintegration. But life was good. It was new. Like I said, I was newlywed at that point, and um, getting ready to move to a new location. And I don't think a lot of the issues that I would run into a little later and manifested yet. If they kind of just there. Because it was so much new and good, and enjoying life, enjoying being alive. I didn't talk to a lot of people after that deployment. I went out a couple times with the boys, but I really withdrew. And to everyone who watches this, sorry. That was my way of coping. I know the people that have been injured real bad. I just had trouble being around, and then to the guys, I just had trouble. Um, I wanted to be around them, but at the same time, I didn't. It almost felt like being around everybody was like back over there, so I avoided people. And for years I did. I didn't talk really much about it. Um, PCS, wife, kid, living at Fort Knox. Immediately going on another deployment. I actually got late deployed to this deployment because my 1 year, there was a mandatory 1 year between deployments, and I was gonna go, but if I'd have said like, I just got married, so if I'd have said, yeah, I'll go on the deployment early with everybody else, normally, in the same deployment, I probably wouldn't have been married as long as I've been. I've been married for 13 years now. So, I stayed back for another, I think it was a month and a half, from that deployment. But I got over there. It was never really recovered. I got to this new unit, and a month later, I was already going back to JRTC to prep for another deployment. None of the guys had been to RC South. They'd all been to RC North or Iraq. I was the only one that had seen RC South, and that's where we were going. So I was a pretty big resource for everybody. Everything was fresh in my brain. I remember our JRTC deployment. I was teaching the IED counter IED guy at TTPs we were using, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are doing it like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, we were doing this stuff." And he was like writing down, taking notes from me about shit we had just been doing in RC South. I was dismounted and mounted, and how we run our dismount teams, and how we would work the mine hound and what we would do for command wire sweeps and all that stuff. And I remember teaching the teacher stuff there. That was kind of interesting. But then deployed RC South, but it was to the east of Kandahar. Um, we went there. It wasn't as many incidents, but it was a different threat. There was fewer but very large IEDs on Highway 1. It was more of a export corridor for the Taliban from Pakistan over, so they didn't saturate that immediate area we were at. It was they'd mess up their own roads. But we do missions out to like near the Pakistan border for a week, 2 weeks at a time. And several incidents happened. One of them was our medic, not our medic, our mechanic got shot. He was just out working on a vehicle, and an Afghan went over and killed him. We had some Afghans on our base, just shot him dead underneath our truck. That was rough. Almost 100 yards from the tent where we were all staying, and the mechanic was out there just trying to fix the truck because we had another mission. Truck had gone down. One of the missions, I had a couple guys get blown up with an amputee, and other guy was pretty messed up. Slapped some tourniquets on them. I remember that everyone was in shock around me, and although I was like the furthest away and where my truck was in that patrol, I was the first one to get to those dismounts. And I ran for like 200, 300 meters to get to them, and there was a truck 10 feet from them. And they just sit there watching because they just in shock. I think they hadn't seen anything like that. So because there was a company commander at first sergeant on that patrol with us, they saw it. I actually ended up getting an award for that. Nothing we hadn't seen before, nothing I hadn't done, but the right people saw it. So that award system is definitely broken. It's not about what you did; it's about who saw you do it and who likes you. And I saw that. That was the first time it hit. Well, not the first time it hit me. I'd seen that before a few times, but that's when I knew that it was, who likes you or that kind of things. But I got a Valor Award for that. I came back from that deployment, and I think at that point, they ended up shutting my brigade down, the brigade I was in, and I developed that was 2 right in a row, so 20 some months of the deployment time, and what was that, 3 years, so yeah, it was a lot. But I had a lot of issues then. Drinking, I like to eat. That's kind of my, stress relief is have a couple drinks and a big meal. It kind of makes you chill out. Fortunately, with the Army, you can't do that. I'm old and fat now, but just a good way to get yourself kicked out. I think you back in the early years, you get kicked out faster for being overweight than if you had a drinking problem. So a lot of people would just drink their sorrows away and not just eat everything. I don't know if there's a right answer for that. Definitely leave some people some time to recover mentally, and some people eat. Some people like just smash a pizza and a couple beers. That's how they relax. Either way, I after that I had some incidents where I was just kind of getting just having just off I was kind of wild cannon or loose cannon. You know, some relationship issues because of that. So I had one of my he was my squad leader. He's my platoon sergeant. I was a squad leader then. He sat me down and was like, "Hey, dude, like, I'll be honest with you. You're great. These guys, this last deployment, you carried them. With some of the ways you were, they all look up to you, but they're not going to look up to you if you keep going down this path. And I am not going to defend you." He'd already one time had been like, this is it. You get help, or next time something happens, I'm going to have to, write you up. So I do not like therapy to this day, but I know there's a place for it. Started seeing therapists. I got lucky. I had like a civilian therapist that was awesome. And she helped me a lot as far as like, it's okay. It's okay. Read this book. And Once a Warrior, Always a Warrior is a book I read. It was pretty good. Kind of put everything into perspective. It's okay to be not feel right and normal and not feel comfortable in your own house. That's okay. Um, but what's not okay is to act out on that. So and that kind of I tried all the pills. They'll throw you medicine here, and then you start getting nauseous. So they give you anti-nausea pill, and like, oh, you can't sleep now. Here's a sleeping pill, and it was a never-ending swirl of new pills. This one's not working anymore, and none of that I can drink. And what really made me relax was just to have a glass of bourbon and a cigar, not get wasted, but just to. And I kind of returned all the pills. I remember taking them in there one day and like, I'm not doing these pills anymore. And I was sick for a couple of weeks, kind of, whatever they coming off the medicine. But um, I've used them off and on, in behavioral health. I use it now, but I don't talk to people. I don't, it's not that there's not a value of talking to someone. I'm talking about a therapist, not like a friend like this. I just feel like the person is paid to care and they don't care. I have found a few therapists along the way that genuinely care, that are interested. Most of the time, it's people that have kind of been through some shit too, whether it was combat or not. Some of the people just I get the vibe they're there for a paycheck, and it's like that's not authentic. I want to be here because I want to feel better. Don't look at your watch. So we go a little over. It'll be okay. And I that's kind of why I don't talk to people anymore. Not friends and stuff. I'll talk to whoever, but therapists, I just don't. Not saying it's bad. I think there's a place for it, but I have to find the right one before I open up nowadays. And PCSing at the army, moving around, you have to find new therapists, and you have to find get re-enrolled in the system. So yeah, let's see that deployment. I kind of dealt with it that way. There was a lot of things I started learning about myself. I hadn't been on Fort Knox long enough, so I got moved over to Engineer Battalion on Fort Knox. The brigade I was in shut down, actually disbanded that brigade. So I'm now in another Engineer Battalion, and guess what? We're going on another deployment. So that was three in a row. I think the longest break was about 18 months in between my third and fourth deployments. Um, that next one, we did Guardian Angel missions for a lot of that deployment. We did Wire Route Clearance Company was doing Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel is like personal security. You do an Overwatch. We were watching contractors and Air Force personnel, like pilots and stuff. They were training Afghans to fly in Kabul. Not a lot of the same incidents. I know the company itself, there's BBIDs and shit like that. We took incoming, but not like route clearance. Those every day. But the stress was there, having to watch those Afghans all the time. And the point before that, I already had our mechanic just shot in cold blood. He was under a vehicle working on it, and he just walked up and killed him, walked away. So I think it's hard to say this because I don't know how to use the words. I'm not a professional speaker or anything, but the Afghans, it was hard to think of them as people sometimes because I know they would kill you if they could, they would kill me and people around me, and it kind of made it hard. Like there's no reasoning with them, and I don't know. It's just their culture, and that's how they are. But for us to be over there and having now I'm a staff sergeant. I'm in Afghanistan for the third time in Afghanistan, fourth deployment, and I'm literally watching people that are these Air Force people that want to help. I want to help train these people to be good at their job. And then we would have moved all over that country because when they went on flights, they had to bring Guardian Angels with them. So we do fly-alongs. We'd fly along, and they taught us which ways to shoot to not take the plane down if you have to, shit like that. That was its own version of stress. Um, Came back from that one, and I got orders during that deployment to go to my favorite place ever, back to Alaska. So I moved back up to Alaska. My son was born when my daughter was born on deployment. My son was born on deployment. I get up to Alaska now. I have four kids now, but by two, then we get to Alaska and get up the unit. And they're like, this unit's never going to deploy back to Fairbanks. They haven't deployed in. They actually were deployed right. They were coming home as we were getting to Afghanistan in 11 and 12, or they were still over there. And I had several buddies get killed. Um, they were actually across the river from us for a while. Whatever that across the Arghandab River from us, there was like a mountain. And there's a base on that mountain. That was my old unit there, and I'd see them. They'd come up to Passab sometimes. Yeah, I'd see them. I had three of my friends got killed. But two of my friends got killed right before we got there. I was on leave, getting ready to go to Afghanistan on our deployment, and those guys, I got called. And they're like, "Hey, man, these dudes just got killed." Incidentally, at the same place that I went to in 2013, that same area. But um, I get to Alaska. I love Alaska, and of course, I've been there for 6 months. And guess what? This unit's deploying. So there's number five. That was my last one. Platoon sergeant. Iraq was different than when I'd left there. It wasn't just hold a bunch of politics, and there wasn't a set bad guy. ISIS had already been mostly defeated. There were remnants, but there was militia forces all over. Drones were a thing. That's kind of its own scary, its own version of scary. The IEDs of the sky, and then things got real weird. The unit we replaced is like nothing's going to happen. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not the one to ever let my people slip or not be prepared, and they didn't like me, but I made them be prepared. We were running missions out to the Syrian border, back and forth from Al Assad, and then Al Salani or Salami or whatever the dude's name was got killed, and I was there when Iran retaliated with those missiles, and it was a crazy story in itself. I mean, I want to not terrifying, but I think terrifying and awestruck was the most I've ever been. Watching those missiles come in. We're talking about theater ballistic missiles the size of semi truck trailers, 20, 30 foot long missiles that came in from Iran. And watching those pour down on around us, that was just nuts. Through night vision. I mean, I've never put my pro mask on, but when the smoke was coming up from those, I'm like, Iranians are crazy. I don't know what's in those. And I was like, boys, I'm putting my mask on. And I did. Got back from that deployment. I did first on time, ops on time. I got orders down here to Fort Leonard Wood. I instruct here now, waiting on retirement. And that's kind of the story. I have 4 kids now. I got 2 littles. I got a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. I got 2 older kids. Life's good. I don't know how I cope with it, but I do. It's weird to say. I have no idea what works for me. It does. I don't exercise the same intensity I used to. I still lift. I'm sitting next to my gym right now. That was used to be my go-to. I don't do that as much. I don't drink much. I don't go to behavioral health much. I do sometimes. I keep up with it. It's more of a check on myself, you know. It's just there. I mean, we can talk about the Afghan withdrawal too. That was the last time that everything really hit me hard was that. I mean, that just kind of broke my heart. Felt like all for nothing. In the grand scheme of things, obviously we did everything so that others may follow, as was our motto for the hooligans. But I think that watching that withdrawal, that's when it all hit. I think the Vietnam veterans, what they had to go through, and the blood, sweat, and tears poured into that crap, all that shit, and it was just gone. All those places that because we were fighting to take terrain. We'd clear our way in. There was many times where they're like, there's a goat road trail. Or you're following this dozer. This dozer is going to cut a road down this in the middle of nowhere. We're going to put a new base in to take this terrain, deny the Taliban this terrain. And it worked. It's just all gone, So That's kind of where I'm at in life. I don't really have many issues. Obviously, things come up sometimes that bug me, but overall, I don't have a word or a way that I cope with it. Um, just just do. It's just there. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll unwind. Or maybe I've just dealt with it as I went. Maybe I never had a chance to
Right.
take a break, and it's I coped with it as I went. I don't know. I wish I knew because I could tell other people this is what worked, but I don't know. I was never one to really care if I live or died. And that sounds messed up, but I always put the mission and what I was doing, and I was cautious, but I gotta do what I gotta do. I gotta get through this. So maybe I was scared, fearful. I didn't want to die, but it was just a thing I accepted maybe long ago. And that's why it wasn't as stressed out as some. And I know some people, it's hard on them. And why is it not as hard on me? I have no idea, you know. Um, like I said, I wish I had answers, but I can't tell you. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you can answer this, but I mean, looking back, if you could have the red carpet rolled out with no judgment and no barriers to getting what you want, what level of, not necessarily what level, but like what do you think is the support that you could have used the most?
I'd say a break when you get back. There's no, you get shoveled through the medical process. Make sure you're not completely crazy. But everyone lies. Make sure you're not drinking too much. Everybody lies. Oh yeah, I drink one drink a month. Yeah, okay. Um, and given a true like break, not leave, still show up to work. I mean, one of my deployments, my third deployment, we showed up to work the next day and was doing PT when we came back. That was their policy. Like this, you are not special. Um, the colonel at the time, that was his policy. You're not special. You go to work the next day. It was an honor to deploy, and I agree with that to a certain degree. But there was no unwinding,
Mhm.
and I feel like people aren't given a chance to truly unwind. I know the British military because been to NATO bases plenty of times. They get like a month where it's like a party for them, paid for, unwind, have at it, do what you do,
Mhm.
let it go. And um, I feel like that's not something we're afforded. And I feel like we should be. Obviously, you have to monitor everything because everyone's different, but let it go. However you need to let it go, let it go.
Yeah, on that note, I remember for us, we came in on a Friday and we're back at work on a Monday on the 2011-12 deployment. I remember we had the weekend, had to be back Monday.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to drink. I don't think either. I think it was no alcohol for that weekend too, if I remember.
I
Um,
would not have remembered a detail like that because there was no way I would have cared what their policy was on something like that. I remember I had a beer on the parking lot before we'd even
yeah,
left.
good old parking lot beer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're a blur because I definitely have worn out towards the end of deployments. Like two of the deployments. Well, I guess three of them. I remember clearly being burnt out to the point where uh, I just didn't care about a lot. Get the job done, do it right, so we all come home. But past that, it's just like it's a blur. And all three of those deployments, I can remember clearly, it was a blur at the end. So coming home, there's a happiness, but it's not a you're happy to be home, yay! But at the same time, there's just like this haze where
Mhm.
am I really here? Did I really just do that and now I'm here? There's always something that's in your head. And then it takes a couple weeks to kick in. I feel like that time that period of where you are coming back to that I'm really back, I'm actually home. I feel like that period should be like that. I'm not saying do anything you want, but let go, you
Mm.
know. And I know other branches in our own military have policies that allow, like, we do PT tests on deployment. Why? I'm doing the job. Obviously make people do PT, especially stretching and stuff like that. It's good for you. But the PT test, I can see diagnostics. Let's practice a little bit because we got to do this when we get home. Why do we take PT tests and deployments? I was working with some Air Force guys, and they're like, "You guys take PT tests and deployments?" Like, yep, that's a thing that we do in the Army. And they're like, we get 6 months after we get back to get back in shape and get our brains right and our bodies right. I'm like, well, should have joined the Air Force then. You know, I feel like stuff like that, little things like that, make a huge difference. They go a long way.
Sure they do. Yeah.
You know, that's one less thing just to not stress about as soon as you get home.
Mm.
I've taken PT tests month after I get home before. That's normally the standards. Like, oh, you go on leave and come back. Let's do another PT test. It's like, what does that accomplish to a soldier? Like, I understand higher ups got their numbers to make. I get it. I've sat in a lot of shoes higher up. I've been in positions, but is that what's most important, or is most important taking care of our people and really making sure that they are unwinding a little bit before we stress them out with some more dumb shit? Yeah.
So we got a couple minutes left. I'd like to ask if you have any final thoughts, and I'll start with that. You have any final thoughts?
Well, if you're still watching this, everyone, this has been a long interview. I don't know how long these normally go, but this has been a whopper. Um, I would just say, first off, sorry I didn't keep up with y'all as much as I should have. I think part of my way to kind of cope was to get away from everyone, and that's sad to say. And I just want to say, hey, I love y'all, and I'll always be here if you need to talk to me. Hit me up, find me on the face space, whatever. Um, so there's that. Um, you're not hanging out with people when we got back, and then not staying connected with. I'm terrible with that. If you need help, reach out to all of us, please. Um, we all went through it in our own capacity. I'm not an advice giver. I never will be. But if you need to talk to someone, I'll talk. I'll listen. For sure. You need to um, unwind. I'll listen. We can laugh. I'll talk shit to you though. Don't worry about that. So that comes with the package, a little shit talking. Um, and then closing remarks. I guess sucker for abuse, kept going back. I don't understand what possessed me to stay in this long, keep going back for more. But um, if someone's watching this and they haven't gone yet, I made it back. I don't know how, but I did. So you can do it too. I'm a bad advice giver.
I think about when you say that, I think about like my son watching, and yeah, I think good advice is go Air Force. I hate to put it that way, but maybe that's the better career move. I don't
I'm a type of person where I don't learn from people's advice normally. I learn from my own mistakes, and I do things I have covered with scars and surgeries, and the deal from not listening to advice. And 18-year-old Tim joining the Army would have been, and you can talk me out of. I'm going somewhere, some kind of MOS that I'm going to be in the thick of it, and I don't think you talk people out of that. I think it just comes to the territory. But I understand when I try to tell people, if they ask me, like, my nephew's going to join the Army, what should I say to him? Be like, you're getting more than you can handle, more than you realize. And it's not just the combat stress, it's the rest along the way. The amount of dumb shit we deal with is insane. And all that to get to that moment in time where you get to see the bad guys, and that's what, you know, if you're into that, that's what it's all about. The moment when you meet the bad guy. After that moment, you know, there's a lot of baggage that comes with it, so it's not all it's cracked up to be. However, you know, if you're going to do that, if that's what you're into, what you want, understand that you can talk to people. There's plenty of us out here. We can talk to, you know, we can really open up.
Okay, I want to thank you for your time and all the information you shared, and just thank you for doing this.
Yep, of course, man.